You're listening to That Teacher podcast, hosted by me, Alyssa McDonald. I'm that teacher who decided enough was enough and started an online business to fund my own 2-year maternity leave from my teaching job. This journey has been life-changing, bringing me opportunities to lead and grow in ways I never thought possible. Now, I'm on a mission to help other educators, moms, and impact-focused entrepreneurs find ways to build the online business of their dreams so they can have the time freedom and financial freedom they deserve. So grab a cup of coffee and let's bring your wildest dreams to life. Good morning, happy Monday, and we're doing another episode on growing and leading in education, even beyond the world of business. And this topic of interest it's become an interest topic for me because I have been working sort of at the cross section of individual solopreneur teacher businesses and larger corporations in the education space, specifically education technology companies. The reason this has happened is that I started my work in 2018 working with teachers who were trying to build their personal brands so that they could make extra money online. Teacherpreneurs, as you've heard of them. That's many of you who are listening to this podcast. That is why you're here. And then in 2022, I started working in education technology and started getting more familiar with the world of Edtech from behind the scenes and how it all works, meeting a lot of different Edtech founders. And in the cross-section of those two worlds, I found that there needs to be more overlap than there currently is, which is why I found myself talking about this topic a little bit more on my Instagram and here on the podcast. And I want to do another episode to talk about how you can work with ed tech companies at varying degrees. You don't have to put a ton of time in to let your voice be heard, but I really think this needs to happen, and not just with teacherpreneurs, but teachers in general. Giving their voice and lending their voice to educational technology companies. I probably don't have to tell you much about why, but I will give a sentence or two here just to explain. But, many EdTech founders have a background in education, or they at least have had some classroom experience, while many of them do not. And that's neither here nor there. I don't think it should be a requirement that you are a former teacher to create an EdTech company, or that you've had formal experience within the classroom. That certainly has its advantages. That's the angle that I was able to come into with Pop PD, is like, oh, I've been a teacher, so I know that professional development is a problem and I know what it looks like, and I've got that domain expertise. Where I was lacking was the technical expertise. I didn't know how to build a technical product. And that is costly and time consuming and all sorts of things. So a lot of ed tech founders are coming from the technology side. They know how to solve problems by building technology, but they don't necessarily have that domain expertise. And they're looking to teachers to support them with that. And the ways that they are connecting with teachers are kind of broken right now. So I'm trying to kind of make these matches happen so that you all can see more opportunities to make money and make impact, and they can get the support they need on the domain expertise side. I started I have a form, I'll link it in the show notes, where you can fill out your information, and then I will send you some of the different jobs that the EdTech companies that I work with are in need of. The EdTech companies that I work with fill out a similar form, and they let me know when they have a job they're looking for support from you all on. And I don't ever do this matching for free like volunteer opportunities. They're only paid opportunities, and I let the EdTech founders know, and I'm very vocal in the educational technology space, that if you are going to borrow the ear of a teacher, even for 10 minutes, that you are going to pay them. And it's not just going to be like, oh, talk to me and maybe I'll send you a $10 Starbucks gift card. No, they'll be paid for their time. So, and they're more than happy to do that, by the way. It's just not always, it's I think because there is this sort of martyr, like just sort of, I don't even know how to say that. There is this innate sense that teachers will do things on a volunteer basis, and it's nobody's fault. It's just sort of like ingrained. And then we ask teachers to do things and we don't it doesn't occur to us that maybe they actually should get paid for their time. It's ridiculous. But anyway, in talking with Edtech founders, they are more than willing to send you money for your time. So there are various ways you can work with founders in Edtech. And I'll start with kind of the lowest lift, which is the first kind of matching exercise I did. And I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I matched some teachers from Teacher Hustle University with some Edtech founders for advisement. And this was a very low level lift on the side of the teacher. I matched them with a company that I knew they would be able to bring expertise to. For the most part, some of the companies were like a little bit really like super niched, so I did the best that I could. But they essentially took a look at the Edtech product and then met with the founder for, I think it was 45 minutes or an hour, and provided suggestions and asked questions and just kind of like poked around the product together and gave them feedback. And the Edtech founders paid, I believe it was $40 for the hour, maybe 45. And then what was really cool is that a lot of these educators were able to, then being connected with the founder, they were able to come on for additional paid opportunities. So part of the requirement of this project was that the educator reported back to myself and the leader of the Edtech founder group and let us know like how did it go, what came of this. And many of the educators that we matched for this program said that they signed on for additional opportunities to do maybe user-generated content for the social media platform for the Edtech company, or additional usability studies. And then one founder actually started working part-time for the company. It's just a nice way to get an introduction, make a little money, let your voice be heard in Edtech. We know that's needed, right? These products are going in front of students. They need the eyes and the thought of a teacher. And for the founders, this is incredibly valuable feedback on their product, and they're going to want to stay connected with you so that they can continue to tap into your expertise as they build their product. So that's kind of like the lowest level lift, is just spend an hour with a founder giving them feedback on their product. I would say the next level or another kind of thing that Edtech founders are looking for, and this is also on my little matching form, is user-generated content. So this is different from influencer content. Influencer content would be, and this is another opportunity, but an influencer content would be you partner with an Edtech brand and you are posting about their platform on your own Instagram page or your own TikTok page. And now I've just flip-flopped which one I'm talking about, but I did want to say that they are not necessarily looking for people who have 100,000 followers. In fact, they tend to really like micro influencers because it's, to be honest, you're going to charge less than the person who has 100,000 followers and super engaged following. If you have a micro influence and they know that your audience, if it's small, is more trusted, it's oftentimes a warmer audience because it's a smaller audience. And they know you're going to be more accessible for answering questions or doing different things. So I definitely wouldn't hesitate to apply for an influencer partnership or reach out for an influencer partnership if you have a smaller audience, as long as they're engaged, they're niched, the niche matches with the Edtech company, there's definitely still a chance there. But let's say you're like, you know what, I'm not really interested in posting about their company on my account, but I'd be more than happy to record a couple videos they could use on their account. They need the faces of teachers for their social media. They can't go on as a technical founder and start recording videos. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Teachers trust teachers. So another way you can get involved with Edtech companies is to create user-generated content, which is usually Reels or TikTok videos. Typically, they should be providing you some direction on that, but some of these smaller Edtech companies may not even have a marketing team yet, and so they may just kind of like say, we just need some user-generated content, and you have to come up with a little bit of the strategy. I would price accordingly. If they're going to tell you exactly what to make in the video, that's a very low lift. You're just going to record the video, versus they don't have a marketing team and they want you to come in and just like create the strategy for the videos and create the videos, and I would charge a little bit more. But that's another way you can work with different Edtech brands. Okay, the next way you can work with an educational technology company is part-time or on a contract basis. So the opportunities I was just talking about were probably like one-off project-based type of commitments. You can also look for opportunities to work with educational technology companies on a little bit of a longer term, but not full time. So maybe this is something you still want to do on the side of teaching, or maybe you have a business that you're working on pretty much full time, but you're open to, opening another stream of income. You can look for contract work or part-time work within an edtech company doing all sorts of things. And I know marketing would be like the first thing that comes to mind, because you're like, oh, I can create user-generated content on contract. That's true, but there are so many other ways you can help. They just want teachers on staff. Teachers understand what's happening with this. They bring this domain expertise to the table that allows them to hit the ground running with any sort of job, whether that is just like you are doing administrative work, or you are you're writing their emails for email marketing, or you're writing some content that they need for the product, or you're doing some sort of instructional design. Instructional design is another big one that a lot of them need help with. Or maybe you're just doing regular usability studies. They will post about these opportunities. Typically on their site, you can use LinkedIn to try to do a search for contract work. But if you're looking for contract work with an ed tech company, the best way to get it is to be connected to the founder. So I would think about starting out with a smaller commitment, like one of these advisory commitments or user-generated content or influencer content, and then explore what opportunities come from there. Otherwise, you certainly can go ahead and apply, but you're kind of taking a shot in the dark. There are a lot of teachers that want to work with edtech companies. So for your best shot, you're going to want to get a referral. And that's why starting to network is so important. Networking with other educators who also are working with edtech companies, networking with edtech companies themselves. You can do this on LinkedIn, and just kind of like growing that network so that when an opportunity pops up, you are ready to take it. Again, you can, I usually only share my teacher matching board within Teacher Hustle University, but I'll put it in the link. I'll put the link in the show notes. That's another way you can get connected through me. That way you have kind of like a trusted connector, and it's easier to find the right opportunity for you. And then the last way you can work with an ed tech company, of course, is to do a career shift into working full-time in ed tech. I really, really, really want to warn you. Okay, maybe that was a little dramatic. Not warn you, but give you some direction here, because I think that there definitely is a false sense. And I think this comes from Instagram and the career coaches out there. Although I think it's amazing that they share their transition into ed tech, I think there is a lot of rose-colored glasses type stuff going on. In my personal opinion, what is it like to work in ed tech? I guess now I was the CEO, so that's a little bit different. But if you think it's like this nice, easy day where you're like clearing off your desk and you're lighting a candle and you're like, taking this nice long lunch break with a sunny walk on the beach, or however it's being promoted on Instagram, it is 100% not like that. Okay, so I just want to be super clear that, at least in my experience, it was not like that. And for a lot of other teachers that I talk to that do transition into ed tech careers, they are saying the same things. It's just not. It's not like you're going to do a career switch into ed tech and feel like, oh my gosh, this is a piece of cake. Teaching is really hard, so of course it might feel a bit easier. But there are lots of things that are just different, and I want to address them here. First of all, you got to work in the summer. So I know that's so obvious, and you're like, okay, Alyssa, yeah, duh. And like, I already do work in the summer, right? Like I work 2 jobs or whatever. But for me, this was really, really eye-opening. I didn't realize how different it was to have flexibility in the summer. So I did work in the summer. I worked as on my instructional design team for my school. I worked on my business, but it was all flexible, right? Like if I wanted to go to the pool with my kids one day, I could, and I didn't really need to get daycare. This is totally different with a full-time position in ed tech. I need daycare. I am at my computer from 9 to 5. I'm not going outside. Maybe I go sit outside for lunch for like 10 minutes and then I come right back in. Now, not all positions are like this, but I'm just warning you up front that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You may end up with a more flexible position, but if you're listening to this and you're like, oof, yeah, I don't know about that, then maybe you want to stick with part-time or contract, which is much more flexible. I just want to say that up front before I'm talking about how great it is to work and how to think about what kind of a job might be right for you in ed tech. Okay, so with that all out of the way, it definitely typically is a 9 to 5 job. You can find something more flexible. If you know what you want going into it, it's better because as you are looking at jobs, you can look for red flags that it is a more rigid schedule and you can know which questions to ask if you are looking for a more flexible schedule. So if I were to go look for a job in ed tech now, I would directly ask, what are the required hours? When are your meetings? Can I flex my hours if I have an appointment during the day? How does that all work? I would ask that up front because I know that myself with 3 kids, I just cannot be in something where I'm rigidly expected to be sitting by my computer from 9 to 5. I can do, like morning meetings and flex the rest of my hours, but it is important to know these things going into the application process so that you can ask. All right, so understanding what you want out of this position is number 1. Number 2 is understanding where you can add value. You do not need to have tons of experience in the specific area that they're hiring for, but it is important to know where you will be happy and what will feel good to you. And there are a million different ways that you can show up and find a position in ed tech. And one of them is maybe instructional design, like we talked about before. Instructional design, whether in ed tech or higher ed, or even at another company that's not in education, is a really easily transferable career type because we're already doing instructional design. You likely already have your bachelor's or master's degree in something like curriculum and instruction, right? And that looks really great on a resume, and you can easily tailor your experiences to speak more to how you did do instructional design. So it's a nice, easy transition. Another one is specifically in ed tech itself is any kind of an operations role. If you are a very organized, systematic teacher, you may love to put operations into place for a business. And this can look like taking everything that they're doing and building a system behind it. It can also be if you're part of a larger team, it could be working underneath a system that's already in place. So this is another kind of important stopping point for me, but there's difference between working for a company that is an early stage startup versus working for a company who has been around and has a larger team. So when you're looking for jobs, you could be looking for, you are the first operations hire, and that means you're going to be building the systems from the ground up, and you better be willing to deal with some ambiguity and figure stuff out because the founder's not going to have time to walk you through it. Some people like that. I love that. That's where my sweet spot is. Or if there's a team of even 7 to 10 people, you're probably going to be working underneath someone else. So you're going to be living in the system that they've built, which is also great. It's just bad. It's more for somebody who likes a little more direction, likes to sit down for the day to work and know exactly what they're going to be working on. Another area you can get into obviously is marketing. And if you have a teacher business, you know enough about marketing. I would definitely not sign yourself up as the founding marketer unless you have extensive experience in marketing. That's a job that I do as I do fractional CMO work for ed tech companies. And, you're listening to this podcast. I have years of experience in marketing. I worked in marketing in an ed tech startup for 2 years, and it's still very, very, very hard. And there are a lot of things every day that I'm learning. Not that you can't do it, but just be careful because sometimes when you see an advertisement for an early stage startup and you're going to be the founding marketer, you're like, oh, cool, I'll just have a bunch of freedom to do whatever I want. That's true, but you're also setting up foundational marketing systems, and it's really important to learn a lot about that. And you're not going to have a lot of direction, so it's just a lot of it's going to fall on you. And not having prior experience in a marketing team, you're eventually going to be building out the team. So just be ready to learn a whole lot if that's the avenue that you choose. Otherwise, go for a company that's a little bit later stage and try to go for a marketing job that is more niched, like growth marketing is what you all are probably most experienced in, which is social media marketing and just figuring out how to get in front of new people. There are other areas of marketing that you might find yourself pulled toward once you have a little bit more experience, and that's fine. but kind of coming into one of those more niche roles like a content marketer or even an email marketer where it's a little bit more specific is probably better, and you're going to have much more direction and you're going to learn a lot more. I think that's another thing about the difference between starting at an early stage company and starting at one that has a smaller team. You're going to learn a lot more at the later stage startup that already has a small team in place, because working under a CMO who has worked in companies like this can really provide you with learning opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't get. All right, I feel like I got in a little bit of a soapbox there. So we have operations, we have marketing, instructional design, which is sort of crosses over all different types of companies. The other one that crosses over all different types of companies and doesn't necessarily need to happen in EdTech is training and development. Every company, Walmart to whatever company you can think of, they need to train their employees, and training is teaching. It's just understanding a way to creatively and effectively teach a staff on concepts they need to know about. And teachers' resumes look really good for those positions. So that would be another area I would look into. Again, that does not need to necessarily be in EdTech. It can be in any company. And it depends where you would want to spend your time. What kind of a company do you want to work for? Okay, there are a million other things we could talk about when talking about transitioning your career. That's a huge step and maybe a huge side step for some of you who are listening to this podcast. So I won't go too deep into career transitions, but I have had a lot of questions from people lately about transitioning your career. The best resource I have to push you toward is the LinkedIn workshop. So I'll link that in the show notes. Getting your LinkedIn page up and running is the first even exploratory step to doing any of the things that I talked about on this podcast today, all the way from being an EdTech advisor for an hour to working full-time for an EdTech company. All of those opportunities are going to come through networking. And networking on LinkedIn is really the best place you can do that right now. So I'll link that in the show notes. I'll link my teacher matching in the show notes. And then I want to invite you to a special workshop I'm doing next week. I'm really excited about this. It is called the Unstuck Teacher Workshop. Now, whether you're thinking about adding a different revenue stream to your business, or you're thinking about a career switch, or you're thinking about part-time work, or you're thinking about picking up a hobby, if you're like, something's missing, I know that I should be doing more, I'm ready for something that I just don't even know what it is, come to the Unstuck Teacher Workshop. I'm going to walk you through a bunch of questions and some journaling, and we're going to just unblock you so that you can figure out what your next big thing is. And we're going to talk about some ideas, and we're going to get you inspired and moving toward the next big thing. The idea for this workshop it came from a coaching call I was doing with a client who I coach on Voxer. And she said, you know what, Alyssa, you just help me get clarity every single time we talk. And I had another meeting with another Teacher Hustle University member this week who said the same thing. And I just want to help more teachers get unstuck, because I know I was sitting in a place of stuckness for way too long, and I didn't know what was next for me, and I couldn't find the resources I needed to make it happen. And so I want to provide you the space to unlock some of this stuff. It's free, so don't hesitate to sign up. Just do save your seat, because it is filling up fast, and I only pay for a certain amount of seats on Zoom, so I don't want you to end up getting locked out. I'll put the link in the show notes to sign up, and I hope to see you there. Either way, I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to That Teacher Podcast. I have a lot of resources for you in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe to my Monday mixtapes and tune in here to the podcast to learn more business and marketing strategy to help grow your business to the business of your dreams so that you can have the financial wiggle room you've been hoping for. Looking forward to supporting you in your journey.